Good day, folks. Welcome to another episode of Andrew's Life. I hope everyone's having a wonderful day, afternoon, evening, whatever time of the day it is that you'll be watching this particular video. I made a video yesterday, I believe, explaining why that it's important to dot your I's and cross your T's. Basically, take your time before going into home purchasing, especially during this current crazy market where everything is egregiously expensive in concerns to purchasing a home. And I just want to kind of do a follow up video. Now, this video, I got data to back up everything that I was saying yesterday. So, the data that I have is coming from the American Home Buyer and Seller Report, the 2023 edition. And this report was made on the 22nd of May of this year, 2023. And the person who prepared this report, her name is Jamie Dunaway Seal. So feel free to go online and check out this report for yourself if you don't believe anything that I'm getting ready to tell you. But everything I'm getting ready to tell you is not based on what I think or how I feel. It's based on just basic data that has been collected the last year, give or take, of people that have recently purchased and or sold their home. So I'm gonna just kind of read off of this report, just so I have all my information correct for you people. So let's go. So for starters, 53% of Americans. Oh, and this video might get a little long. I'm gonna warn you guys right now because on some of this stuff I read, I might add my 2 cents to it. So there's a possibility that this video might get a little long. Okay, now I'll go. So to start with, you got 53% of Americans who think it's a bad time to buy a house. You know what? I got something to add to that. I would have to agree because I was actually looking at buying a house up in Indiana because I'm not gonna lie to you people. I mean, I've always, I moved down here to Alabama because I didn't want to deal with the colder winters up in Indiana. But I find myself kind of homesick. I'm not gonna lie to you folks. I mean, even when I left Indiana about a couple of years ago, I've always considered Indiana my home. I've had a lot of good experiences up there. And I made some good friends up there. To this day, I still go up there. I mean, I try to go up there every, I want to say 3 months, give or take, to go visit friends. And then I'll drive a few hours east into Ohio to visit family. So, make a long story short, I just thought it would be nice to be a little closer to friends, be a little closer to family, and to be quite frank with you people, you know, I got a little homesick. I wanted to live back in Indiana. So I was contemplating on selling my house here in Alabama. Well, to make a very long story short, for the sake of this video, I'm not going to be moving to Indiana, at least not right now, because the housing market up there is still crazy, it's still busy, and right now there's really nothing up there that I want that's within my price range that I feel is even a reasonable price. So for the time being, I'm going to still remain here in Alabama. So I definitely agree with 53% of recent people shopping around for homes that say buying a home right now is a bad time. I totally agree. Okay, following that piece of data, 51% think it's a bad time to sell. Again, Uh, for me personally, I do think it's a bad time to sell because, like, I'm here in Alabama, and in the region of Alabama where I currently reside, the market has already began to slow down. As we're up in most parts of Indiana, especially in some of the areas of Indiana where I would desire to reside, the market up there is still relatively busy. So if I were to sell my house in Alabama and go to Indiana, not only would I potentially lose money due to the change of the housing market and due to all the expenses that are associated with selling a house, such as realtor fees, and then all the expenses on top of that that are associated with moving, such as moving expenses, which for me would be fairly expensive because I'm basically would be moving to the opposite side of the country almost. So taking all that into consideration, I would say for me personally, selling my house right now it would be a bad idea. So I would have to agree with the 51% of people who think it's a bad time to sell. Now, following that, 44% of buyers say it's harder to purchase a home in 2023. Again, I would have to agree. And it's harder to purchase a home this year because ever since even last year, home prices have went up even more. And it seems like inventory is even lower this year than it was last year. And given that it's summer and given that it's still warm outside, the weather is still nice, we're still, you know, I mean, we're at least in the tail end of the busy real estate market. So, again, when I looked around for something up in Indiana that I would want, either A, the price is way too high, B, I just didn't see anything I wanted. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. It is harder to find a house this year than it was even last year. And last year wasn't exactly a picnic either. Okay, 36% are not satisfied with their buying experience. Mostly first time home buyers have had this issue recently. Again, that makes total sense because as a first time home buyer, you're not going to know all the appropriate questions to ask the realtor that you chose to hire to help you shop around for a home. You're not going to know all the appropriate questions to ask in concerns to your home that you're getting ready to buy, even though, now for those of you that are smart and you go through a home and you hire your own home inspector, not one that the realtor suggests you to use, but you actually get your own. Even if you do that, I would say in most cases, if you're a first time home buyer, you're not going to know all the appropriate questions to ask in concerns to the home. You're not going to quite understand what the inspector is looking at and why. And if the inspector, even if you're side by side with the inspector while the inspection's being done, if the inspector tells you that he's going to be done within, let's say, 2 hours, and the house that you're looking to buy is, let's say, 2,000 square feet, as a new home buyer, you're not going to understand that a home inspector that spends only 2 hours on a 2,000 square foot structure is most likely taking a lot of shortcuts. There, that inspector is most likely going to miss a lot of critical things about the home that could be wrong. That if you buy the home, you're going to be on the hook for those repairs down the road. A new home buyer, a first time home buyer, is not going to understand that a good home inspector is going to take at least 5 hours for a 2,000 square foot structure. So, and not to mention that if you're that many first time home buyers, a lot of times, uh, a lot of first time home buyers are going to have the unfortunate experience of dealing with a realtor that either A, doesn't know what the hell they're doing. I mean, they're a realtor, they got their license, but chances are they just got their license the other week. So they don't really know the real estate business as much as they should, as much as a more seasoned realtor would know the business. Or two, they might get a realtor that's greedy and they don't really give a damn about the client. They don't truly have a passion for what they're doing as a realtor. They don't really have a love for real estate or helping out people in relation to real estate transactions. There's a bunch of realtors out here that all they care about is making money and that's it. They don't care about the people. They don't really have a passion in the work they do. And therefore, they're going to do a lot of things wrong, or they might do a lot of things. They might, some of the stuff they do might raise a question or two or a few of their ethics because that's how greedy some of these agents are. They don't care. I mean, they're crooked, some of them. And sadly, many of your first time home buyers are not going to realize that. They're not going to understand what to look for. They're not going to understand what questions to ask when even shopping around for a realtor to help them out when it comes to shopping around for a house and when it comes to presenting them throughout the transaction of the piece of real estate that they choose to purchase. And I can say more about that, but again, for the sake of this video, I'm going to keep it going. 67% felt they were pressured to purchase. Again, you got a lot of realtors out here that want to rush you. They want you to purchase a house real fast and quick. I mean, whenever you're purchasing a house, which for most people will be the biggest purchase that you make in your life, the most amount of your money, the most amount of your wealth in many cases is going to be tied into your home. Now, I had a realtor. I mean, last year I was looking at some houses up in Anderson. And I had a realtor whom I was working with. And, you know, I would say for the first three houses, me and her were working pretty good together. But then when she realized that I wasn't gonna buy the first house that I see, I wasn't willing to submit an offer even on the first few houses that I saw. And even when I saw a house that I saw, which I would say on the fifth house that we looked at together, I liked the house, and I got with my agent, and I told my agent what I was willing to pay. Now my agent told me that hey, this person wants X amount of money. They're not going for less. So I told her, well, by law, you have to allow me to submit the offer in writing, and if they decline, then so be it. We'll just keep on going. So anyhow, I go ahead. I show up at her office. I submit we submit the offer and everything, and as he stated, the guy declined. Now I went back with a counter offer, and he declined that. He was adamant about getting the full price on this house. Now this happened about a year and a half. about this happened about a year and a half ago. And then there was a few other houses that I wanted to look at. And since she was the agent whom I was working with at the time, I mean, I told her, hey, man, can we look at any of these houses? And she told me, yes, I'll get back with you in a few hours because I got something to do right now. I got other clients I got to meet, all that good stuff. Okay, cool, whatever. Well, I would say a good 6 hours went by. She never called. So I called her. She never answered. I left her a message. Next morning, next morning I wake up. I look at my messages to see if she gave me a text. Nothing. Now, remind you, this was like maybe 10 or 11 o'clock in the morning. By the time I bothered to look at my phone, no calls, no text, no nothing. I called her. No answer. I called her maybe a couple hours later, left her a message, and needless to say, she never called me back. So, to me, she appeared to be the type of agent that if you didn't buy the first thing that you saw, if you didn't accept the full price offer of the asking price, then she wasn't going to deal with you. And sadly, you have a lot of first time home buyers that go through that type of shit. So, yeah, the 67% of recent buyers that felt they were pressured to purchase, that is real. And I'm willing to bet that the majority of that 67% were first time home buyers. So, more than half, 52% of buyers state their happiness hasn't improved since their home purchase. Now, me personally, I'm I'm a huge advocate of home ownership. My attitude is if you live somewhere that's affordable, you like the community, you like the people, then eventually you need to put your money where your mouth is and invest in that community. Because to me, if you purchase a home and you do it right, you do it responsibly, it will truly be an asset in your life. But if you do any of that wrong, then it's going to be a freaking nightmare. It's going to be a financial nightmare. It's going to be a emotional nightmare. It's just going to be a nightmare. Or if you go out here and you buy a house and you do it responsibly, you do things the right way, you pay market value or below, you go and you negotiate for a lower price like you're supposed to when you look at a house. If you have an agent that cares about their job, they're going to help you negotiate. So if you have all those things in place and you end up buying a house, I would say for the most part you're going to be happy because you did everything the way you did everything correctly. Now, the reason why you got over half the people right now, recent home buyers who are not happy, who are not who are no happier in life even after making a huge purchase such as a home, it's because many of them didn't do it correctly. You have a lot of people that went out here and when they decided to buy a house, they neglected to do home inspections. They neglected to even step foot on the local soil to see the house in person. A lot of people recently they called their agent. Their agent did a virtual tour. The person wasn't even there in the flesh. So by the time that by the time that buyer saw the house in person, A, there were probably a lot of issues that the house had that nobody bothered her to tell them about. The agent most likely didn't tell them about. Since they neglected to hire a home inspector, they didn't know. Secondly, since they didn't look at the house in person, they therefore did not get a chance to look at the neighborhood. They didn't get a chance to get a feel of the area. They didn't get a chance to examine any of the people. They just went by online pics. They just went by the virtual tour that their agent gave them, which, of course, on the virtual tour, the agent kind of made it to where they saw the best parts of the house. The pics typically are to where you're not going to see all the things that are messed up. Like when they take a, typically when an agent takes a pic of a house, they're going to make sure that they have a little bit of trees in the picture. They have a little bit of grass in the picture. You can see some of the sky. I mean, if the house is located in the hood, and maybe the next door neighbor has a freaking junkyard, basically in their backyard, we all know what that looked like. Do you think the realtor is gonna take pics to where you can see the next door neighbor's house all junked up? No, they're not gonna do that because that would ruin the probability of anybody wanting to acquire on that piece of property. So yeah, those are some of the reasons in a nutshell that that 52% of your buyers were no happier after making a home purchase than they were before. Again, I could probably go on, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna keep it going. 56% of recent buyers felt in over their head financially since their purchase. Again, if you purchase your home and you do it right, you do it responsibly, you do it with a good agent, you wouldn't feel, not so many people would have felt in over their head. Because if these people would have done it correctly, they would have articulated everything in their budget before making this purchase. And the purchase that they wanted, the house that they wanted to buy, they would have sat down with whomever they're taking a loan out through. The lending officer would have crunched the numbers for that for these people, and then once these people received how much they're going to owe a month on the mortgage itself, how much are they going to owe for homeowners insurance, how much are they going to have to save up for repair and maintenances in the future, and depending on how much you put down, how much will that person have to pay for PMI if they put down less than 20%. So, and then of course, so yeah, I mean, but unfortunately, a lot of people recently, uh, not only did they neglect home inspections, which means they purchased a home not knowing what was wrong with it, but most people recently purchased a home and overpaid. And when I say overpaid, I'm talking about you got people that overpaid by, I would say, you got a lot of people that paid double or even triple the price for a home that they should have paid. I'll give you an example. There's this one house in Anderson, Indiana, that I was looking at, and I was contemplating on purchasing it and renting it out. Now, this particular house sold for $25,000 back in 2012. Now, last year in 2022, I was looking at that exact same house. It was for sale again. And this house was 1,000 square feet, and it had a four. I believe the lot size was about 4,500 square feet. The lot size is rather small. No garage, no carport, only 1,000 square feet house. And this house is located in West Anderson. So, and anyone that knows Anderson, Indiana, you know what's going on with West Anderson. West Anderson is not the best side of town in the city of Anderson. I'm not going to say it's necessarily bad. Now, parts of it is bad, but West Anderson is the cheapest part of Anderson where you can live. Now, for this particular house, the seller was asking $150,000. Now, I would say on a good day, the real value of that house was no more than $40,000 on a good day, but the seller was asking 150. So that is my little example of how many people recently, in the last couple of years, give or take, have paid egregiously over price for their home. A home that people should have paid $75,000 for. You got a lot of people that may have paid $150,000 for. I think you guys get what I'm trying to say. Let me keep on going. Let's see here. 62% of buyers struggle to make their mortgage payments on time. Again, a lot of people be out here buying up these houses like there's no tomorrow. You got a lot of people right now buying houses based on emotion, not based on logic. You got a lot of people hyperextending their finances to purchase a home. You got people not even bothering to negotiate. You got a lot of people automatically out the gate willing to submit a full price offer because their agent told them to. And that's that bullshit that I'm talking about with some of these agents out here. And you even got some agents that might advise their client to pay beyond full price. And sadly, some of their clients have took the agent's advice and done exactly that. So, and in many cases, when people do that type of stuff, it's going to typically hyperextend their finances, which means when they buy the house and now it's time to pay the mortgage, guess what? People may not have the money for that month to pay the mortgage because maybe something else during that time came up, like maybe something on that house that they purchased and neglected to do an inspection on before they purchased. Maybe something on that house came up and they had to get it fixed immediately. Maybe their air conditioning unit went out. Maybe during this past winter, their furnace was older and it went out. Or maybe they had something else going on, such as something with their plumbing. And they had to get that fixed right away. So when it came time to pay that mortgage, they were unable to pay on time. They had to pay late. Probably add a little more to it, but I'm going to keep on going because I don't want to make the video too terribly long. So homeowners stated that the difficulty of buying a home went from 30% in 2022 to 44% in 2023 due to increased interest rates, high home prices, home purchase, high home prices, and for some, uh, they discovered that home purchasing would exceed their budget. Kind of like what I discussed just a second ago with that last statement. I mean, basically, I don't really have nothing to add to it. And what I just read is fairly straight to the point and self-explanatory. Let's keep going. 93% of recent home buyers compromised their priorities in 2023, compared to 80% of home buyers compromising their priorities, which 80% is still a damn high number. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Now, what they mean, now I'm pretty sure a lot of you know exactly what that means, but I'm gonna elaborate on it anyway. See what they mean by compromise is, typically when people go and they look at a house to purchase, especially if you're a seasoned home buyer, even as a first time home buyer, there's certain things you want. Like, A, you might want to be in a decent neighborhood. where you don't gotta worry about people breaking in your home. You don't gotta worry about getting carjacked at the gas station. You don't gotta worry about shootouts at night. Maybe you might want to be in an area where it has a decent school district. Maybe you might want your maybe there's certain amenities, whether it be entertainment or otherwise, that you might want within close vicinities of where you're going to be living. And when it comes to the house itself, maybe you might want a lot size of a certain size or larger. Maybe you want your house to be of a certain amount of square footage or larger. Maybe you might want only a single story and not a two-story, because maybe you got bad feet and you can't really use steps, or you got elders you got to look after and they can't use steps. So you need everything on one floor. Maybe you desire to have a garage. I mean, so little stuff like that. Now, of course, with this current housing market being as crazy as it is, I mean, there's a lot of people within the last few years that wanted to purchase a home so bad that many people were willing to uh, do away with some of their priorities. Now, I guess there's certain things that you want that, you know what, you can sacrifice, you can do without. It's not that important. Now, I will say within the last few years, I would say one priority that is important that many people have done away, that many people have have decided to do without, and I would say in some cases unknowingly, is safety. Because I'm I'm pretty confident that there's been a lot of folks recently that have probably purchased houses in the hood because it was the only thing that they were able to afford. It was the only thing that was within their budget. So I would say for many people out here, just given the housing prices the last few years. I mean, nowadays you got houses going for damn near $100,000 in the hoods of Anderson. So I'm fairly sure there were a fair number of people that normally they would have never thought to buy a house in the hood anywhere, but just due to the housing prices and due to their budget, due to how much people may have been qualified for in terms of a mortgage, the only houses that were available to them were probably somewhere either in the hood or it may have been in a neighborhood that was so and so, or the house itself may have not had all the features that they wanted. It may have not been the square footage they're looking for. It goes on and on. So I think I've elaborated enough on that. So let's keep on going. Let's see. About 93% of home buyers and 95% of home sellers have regrets in 2023, which is up from 72% of home buyers and 90% of home sellers having regrets. Again, basically what I've been discussing throughout this entire video. There's all kind of regrets that people are having recently. Anywhere from they knew, many people know down deep that they paid way too much money for their home. So for those that purchased homes within the last few years, many of those individuals know good and well. They know down deep they paid way too much. And even people that have sold their homes recently, they know down deep that even that they shouldn't have sold. I mean, you got a lot of people that, a few years ago when the mortgage was 3%, people had a house and their mortgage was 3%. But for whatever reason, they didn't want to keep that house no more. They wanted to sell and buy something else. So you got people that sold their home at they're paying 3% mortgage, and now that the mortgage rates have risen substantially since then, you got people that rather than paying 3% mortgage, now they're up to paying, let's say, 6 and 7% mortgage. So that's one big reason why you got so many people that regret selling their home. And secondly, and this was a situation that I was gonna run into having I chose to sell my current home here in Alabama and move back up to Indiana. You got some people that sold their home in one area, and even though they may have got a decent return from that house that they sold, they went to another area and actually ended up overpaying. They paid more than what they've anticipated. The prices in the other area were probably a little higher than what they thought, or maybe from the time that they had a buyer, from the time that that person and the buyer closed and that person got their money, that person then went to the location that they wanted to live. They shopped around for a house, and by then the prices have risen significantly. So they got a good deal. I mean, they got a good return on the house they sold, maybe. However, they ended up having to pay way more for their new house than what they've anticipated. So those are just a few examples of people that may have had regrets selling their house. And as far as people regret buying, I've been explaining that throughout the video, so I'm not going to elaborate on that no more. So the next one is the percent of homes that sold within 1 month decreased about half. So from 55% in 2022, so in 2022, 55% of all houses that were on the MLS sold within a month. As for this year in 2023, only 28% of houses on the MLS are selling within a month. And obviously, that's going to indicate a cooling of the housing market. Now, do I personally believe the housing market is cooling down? I do, and here's why. Now, for one, it depends on where you're at. Like the region I'm located in Alabama, the market where I live has cooled down, has already began to cool down. In fact, it has cooled down significantly since last year around this time. As we're up in Indiana, the market is still relatively busy. So, rather the housing market has cooled down or it still is hot, it all depends on where you're located. So, I'm going to keep on going here. Now, the last piece of data I got for you guys is 57% made less than 50 grand on their home sale. And 1 in 14 or 7% lost money or broke even. Now, for those that claim to have broke even, I would say in most cases they most likely lost. But, that's my opinion though. But according to the data, people have actually lost or broke even on their home. And for those who made money, made 50,000. Now, even those who may have made some money, even those who may have walked away from the table with a little bit of equity, with a little check in their pocket, so to speak. Again, whenever you sell a home, now me, the house I'm in right now, if I would have chose to sell this house, now when it comes to the real estate aspect of things, I would have made money. However, here's where things would have changed for the worse for me. Like I told you guys before, and I'm going to talk in general. Whenever you sell a house, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to sell a house and then where you going to live? Now, granted, you got some people that sell a house because they want to downsize, and maybe they might choose to go out and buy a travel trailer and live a more transient life. But I would say for the vast majority of us here in the United States, at least, if you're going to sell a house, typically you're going to go and buy another house elsewhere. So out of the equity that you earn, out of the equity that you receive on closing day, if you receive any kind of money, typically a few things that most people got to take into consideration is A, you got moving expenses. B, you'll have unexpected repairs that will come up on your new house. It's you will. It's a guarantee. Trust me. And so you got moving expenses, you got unexpected repairs, and depending on what type of offer that you put in for your new house, depending on what kind of arrangement that you may have with that particular seller, you might even have to go to the table over there with a check to pay some closing to all the closing, depending on what type of offer that you submit. So basically, at the bare minimum, you got to think about repairs to your new home. You got to think about closing costs for your new home, possibly, and you also got to consider moving expenses. And depending on how long it takes for you to find another home, you also got to take into consideration storage fees. And I would say for most people, hotel expenses. Because not everyone is going to be living out of their freaking van or an RV. Not everyone is going to have the luxury of being able to stay with friends or relatives. Alright, folks. That's all I got for you folks. Hopefully you guys got something out of this particular video. So, as I'm going to keep on preaching here, do not go out here and purchase a home in a hurry. Take your time. Do your due diligence. Hire home inspectors. In fact, before you do any of that, hire a good realtor that's honest and is passionate about their job. All right, folks, y'all have a good one. Stay blessed out there. See you on the next one.